Okay. For this class, you can have your cameras on or off. That's up to you. And please let me know in the chat if you can hear me. Just say yes if you hear me. Perfect. Okay. Okay. Before we start, today I will explain just a couple things. For this class, I want to lead it as if I am leading a seminar. So you have a bit of a understanding of how I teach, how I work, how do I see my clients' blogs. And so for this class, the main thing you'll need to do is simply be very relaxed in a very relaxed environment. Make sure nobody will disturb you. If you have any questions, please write in the chat. Don't unmute yourself because it can shock people's nervous system when you start to speak randomly. Because what I teach, the way we work, is going into a very deep, relaxed state, and then we begin to go into a meditative field. And when we randomly hear a loud sound or somebody speak, it can shock us because we're trying to relax. And then imagine somebody just randomly shouts. So for the class, keep your audios off, keep yourself muted, and please write in the chat. And the second thing is please let me know now if you are interested in a personal consultation. In a personal consultation, what we'll do is at the end of the class, I will personally see where your blocks are. You can write in the chat, I'm interested. That way, if there's a few people who want to understand where their blocks are, we will do it at the end of the class. If not, we will skip it altogether. So you can write in the chat, I am interested. Okay, perfect then. All right. For the meanwhile, I'm going to turn off my video. If any point you can't hear me, please let me know. And you can turn your videos off too. Nobody's going to be looking at anyone. Here we will do like a audio class, and then in about 30, 40 minutes, maybe even faster, we will do a meditation. And in the meanwhile, we just need to stay very relaxed. Okay, perfect. All right, please come sitting up straight. You can sit on a chair, you can sit on the floor, on your sofa, your bed, but be very straight with your spine and comfortable. This is very important. We don't need to be in pain at all. Be very, very comfortable. We want to sit up straight because we can't feel ourselves when we're laying down. And when we're sitting up straight, our energy from the bottom of our spine rises all the way to our brain, through our brain stem, our neck, and we're able to perceive what is happening in our mind, in our body. But when we're laying down, we can't feel ourselves very well. But when we sit up straight, shoulders are relaxed, we start to feel ourselves much better. And now what we want to do is begin to focus on breathing long and deep through our nose. Consciously now begin to focus on your breath and try to breathe slower through the nose, longer and deeper. Keep your eyes closed and don't move the body now. When you move the body, your sensations change. And with that, you don't have a clear answer on what is happening, what you need. When you're completely physically still, it also forces the mind to become still. And so be very, very still with the body. Don't move a toe. Keep your eyes closed, even if you don't understand what is happening, what you're doing. Simply be very physically still and begin to focus more and more on your breath. As you're inhaling, begin to bring your breath into your belly, into your diaphragm, and expand your belly like a balloon with your inhale. Inhale, expand the belly, expand the diaphragm, fill up the belly like a balloon, and then slowly exhale and let the balloon, your belly, deflate. Focus, focus. Don't get distracted. Focus on your breath. Focus on being consciously still. It is a choice. You choose to be relaxed. You choose not to move. Even if you don't understand what is happening, as long as it's a conscious choice, it begins to then create a different state within you. Just about everything we do in our lives, we do it automatically. And here we are very consciously doing something, especially now you can't see anyone, you can't see me. Your mind is racing and it's difficult. It's difficult to relax. It's difficult to feel yourself. But when you consciously choose to, anyways, trust yourself and continue to allow yourself to be still, to focus on your breath, you create a very different, much lighter state. Perfect. Okay. Continue to be relaxed. Don't move. Continue to keep your eyes closed. The more you do this throughout this class, the easier it will be to really understand what is happening. The yoga that I teach is the highest level of Kundalini Yoga. Kundalini Yoga has been around for thousands of years, but it's never been taught openly until 1960s. And the last master of Kundalini Yoga opened up the teachings so that we would have a technology, a path of awareness to be able to consciously understand what is happening in our entire lives, and not just to be able to understand what stress we have, what problems we have, but also have the exact method, the exact teachings to help us move past these problems, to understand what we can do to improve it, to change it, to get out of a difficult situation. I've been practicing Kundalini Yoga now for 21, 22 years. And the last 8 years, I've been focusing not just on Kundalini Yoga, but specifically the way the masters used to teach, which was through meditative silence. And the reason why I wanted to do an audio class today, except for when we'll meditate, I will turn on my camera. I wanted to focus on audio class because then instead of looking around and being distracted by all the things around us, we are able to go within ourselves and observe and feel how we connect with these teachings. Does it really, is it really something for me? And it's much, much easier when we are sitting still with our eyes closed. The moment you open your eyes, you will not hear what I'm saying. You will start to go off into your thoughts, and your mind will start to try and pull you away into trying to take whatever I'm saying and try and connect it with something. But when you have your eyes closed, it becomes much, much easier to feel, to perceive, to understand, to take in the knowledge. And then from there, you're able to piece it together later. But in the moment, we don't want to get distracted. We don't want to start analyzing everything and connecting everything immediately, because then we'll get distracted and we won't really understand what's happening. You'll miss a lot of it. So continue to keep your eyes closed, continue to be very still. And remember, you can do this on your bed, you can do this on your sofa, you don't need to be uncomfortable. Today's class is on the topic of shaping our destiny. This was the very first topic I began to learn with my teacher, Dasha Kabalova, who has been studying for the last 28 years the highest level of Kundalini Yoga. At the highest level of Kundalini Yoga, we do things very differently. We never plan our classes. We never decide beforehand that this is what we need to work with. What we do as teachers is we come to the class, and in the moment we observe what is happening, why we have a certain block with a topic. And it can be related to anything. It can be prosperity, it can be relationships, it can be your health. But we have no preconceptions. We have no information beforehand. We feel everything that's happening precisely at this time. And this allows us to actually feel and to select the right practices that will allow you to move past this block, this problem, this challenge that you have. I've been working like this for the last 8 years. I began training 8 years ago. I was certified to become a Kundalini Yoga teacher of the highest level. And then for the last 8 years, I continue to learn about it, continue to attend trainings and deepen my understanding and also my application of these teachings. For the most part, yoga and meditation, it's not seen and it's not used as a technique to consciously and actively heal our health issues, our problems, because most people don't associate yoga and meditation with something outside of a nice little hobby. Or it will allow me to connect with my breath, it will allow me to relieve some tension by stretching. But it's not really truly used as a method to rewire our entire system. It's not used as a method to truly change our lives. And that was the way I was learning Kundalini Yoga for the first 14 years. It was just something I did because it felt wonderful and I would be in bliss. But then after the yoga class, all of my problems would still be there. I would have no idea, no strength to truly change my life. When I met my teacher, Dasha Kabalova, who was studying under the master. For the first year, I began to learn how do we truly apply yoga and meditation to change our life, which is today's class, which is shaping our destiny. How do we utilize yoga and meditation? How does that combine and then change our life outwards? And for me, it started with the topic of the brain. Because when I first went to her, I was extremely anxious. I was depressed. I was having panic attacks. I had insomnia, hormonal issues, digestive issues. I was also constantly, every job I took was just horrible. Always low paying, always with some horrible employer, exhausting, and it was always burning me out. And it seemed to me that this was just the only path. I didn't know how else to change because even when I changed companies, I would end up at the same environment one way or another, with the same low paying job, with the same exhausting jobs. And it felt to me that I was stuck in this. But at the same time, I didn't see any other way. It was just to me that this is the way business works, that every job you get, every company you go to will be the same. And at that time, I decided before I met my teacher, I felt and I didn't want to continue meditating anymore. I didn't connect with it. What was the point of doing all of these breath works and staying in these painful postures and going to classes if my anxieties, my traumas, my financial issues were always just the same? I didn't feel any significant change from yoga and meditation until I met my teacher. The moment I met her in the first meeting, she was able to understand and see where all of my blocks were. And she spoke to me as if she has been living with me my entire life. But at that point, when she was doing my consultation for me as well, I had not told her a single thing about myself. All she knew was my name. But she spoke to me as if she knew where all of my blocks were, and she understood truly what I needed from myself, what practices, what path, what seminars, what steps that I needed to take to change my life. And to me, that was the most interesting thing. But again, when I started to learn about it, at first I had a lot of excitement. I thought it was such an amazing thing that she could see all of my blogs. She understood, really, she saw me for who I am and understood how I could work through my problems. But then after a couple of weeks, I just felt, nothing's going to change. I couldn't connect my present with my future. And this is one of our first biggest blocks is that when we begin to take steps towards a healthier life, simply we can begin to work out, we begin to change our diet, we hire a nutritionist, and we begin to take these steps. After a couple weeks, you notice where you feel nothing's really changing. At first, it's changing, you feel really good, and you feel, wow, this is really going to make a difference. And then after a couple weeks, you feel nothing is working, nothing is changing, and you want to quit. And it can be with anything. It can be with a diet, it can be with a workout, it can be with some yoga, meditation, some martial arts, with hobbies, where you try, you like it, and then after a while you stop. Not even a while, after a very quick, short period, you want to stop. And for me, that was the same. When I first met my teacher, everything connected. But then after a few weeks, I felt, oh, what's the point? Nothing's changing. And I began to slow down and I stopped practicing because I thought nothing's going to change. Nothing is making a difference. But again, for me, what kind of happened at that time is I was terrified that I would stay in this position forever because I could not set any boundaries. I didn't know how to get a better job. I didn't know how to improve my finances, my income. I didn't know how to how to quickly save up and be able to move to Spain and live with my partner. And at that time, I was living in Singapore. So I felt that everything is so difficult and I didn't know what to do. And on another hand, I wanted to just quit. I felt nothing is going to change. What's the point? I'm still stressed. Nothing is improving. But I also felt that at least I could give this a shot. I could try this out a little bit. And so I continued to practice for 2 months. And that's when I started to see changes in my state. In 2 months, I came out of my depression and I started to have less anxiety. And at that time, not everything changed in my life automatically overnight. It was slowly, gradually, it was simply changing my state. And I thought that was a really small thing. What's the point of having a healthy state if all your problems in your life continue to persist? Because unconsciously, subconsciously, what I really wanted, not change, but I really wanted a miracle cure for my problems, a miracle pill for my problems. I didn't want to consciously, actively take different choices, do different things that would then allow a different result in my life. I just was always searching for a magical pill. Part of the reason I was always looking for a magical pill, and most people also have this very reason, is that we truly believe that we don't have the power to change our lives. We truly believe that we are incredibly limited. And whatever we can do in our lives now, it's the max. We really feel we can't go beyond this border. And the easiest way to take that is your salary, your income. That's the easiest way to see is that whatever has been your highest salary or your most consistent salary, I think that would be better, the most consistent salary, it seems that this is the only amount you can earn, that you cannot earn past this doing the same job. Do you notice this? You can say yes or no. That's true. You feel this. Here, it's not about trying to be right or wrong, but it's just something that you feel it's impossible to get paid more doing the same job. And to me, this was my feeling as well that I can't go past anything. My problems will continue to persist, and having a healthier state will not make a difference. But this was the first topic my teacher had me work with, which was my brain and working on my state. And she insisted I needed to do this topic, even though I felt what I really need is inner strength because I was anxious all of the time. And I also felt that I should do something for the nervous system because I couldn't sleep and I had insomnia and I also had digestion issues. So my idea of what I needed to work with was completely different from what my teacher, Dasha Kabalova, had told me to work on in my consultation with her. But because I was so lost and I felt, well, I don't know anything. I can't figure this out myself. I can't move past my problems myself. I decided to just go with the practices and her recommendations, and I started to follow them. And I started to notice a change. First, it was just simply in my state. I started to sleep better and I got out of my depression. And for me, it was such a clear, distinct way of living because before everything I looked, every idea, every wish I had, instead of filling me with hope, it filled me with dread and anger. I thought, well, easy for everyone, but I can't do this. I can't do that. Nothing comes to me easy. But the first 2 months, as I began to practice these meditations that she had me do to work on my brain, to work on balancing my state, I began to understand and see myself and my life differently. I started to have a lot more ideas and plans and wishes for my future. And at that time, I thought it was nothing. I thought, oh my God, it's such a small thing. Anybody can do this. But in reality, it was actually a sign of my brain healing and my state really changing because now I started to focus on what I really wanted to achieve in my life. And it didn't depress me. It didn't create this feeling of anger and anxiety and dread by the idea of I want to move to Spain, I want to live with my partner, I want to be able to support myself living in Spain. And before, the idea would just constant create such anxiety and dread that I would just push it back. It seemed to me just a dream. But then those 2 months, I began to take a lot of new steps to make my wishes come true. The first was I started to train to learn the highest level of Kundalini Yoga. The second, I began to practice every day, morning and evening, the meditations I would get from my teacher through a personal consultation. The third, which came about a month after I began to practice every day, is I asked for a raise, which was the first time I had ever done that in all of my jobs. And I asked for a raise. I received the raise as well. And every single day, I began to think about how can I make my wishes come true? What steps can I take? And that was when my life began to change. Because normally, when we take a look at our dreams, our wishes, they just stay that. They don't change. It's just a concept we have. And we think about it as if it will happen in the future somehow. Do you notice this? You're hoping it will just happen to you, that some miracle will happen, and then your problems will be resolved, and then your dream life will happen by itself. And that was as well my way of living. I always thought that this was the point of yoga and meditation, that I am meditating so that the God, universe, or somebody like an angel will come into my life and change all my problems. But when I began to work with my teacher, she was the very opposite of what I had learned for 15 years about Kundalini Yoga and about yoga and meditation itself. She had me take a lot of steps in my life. Example, I needed to find my own, create my own business. That was one of her ideas that she had for me in personal consultation. And I thought that was the worst thing she could ever have said to me because I could not speak, I could not set boundaries, I could not ask for what I wanted. I didn't even know what I wanted. And so when she suggested this to me, I thought, she is fucking with me because how am I going to do this? It's impossible. I can't do any business myself. And at the same time, when I even began to bring this up with my family, they weren't just against it, but they were convinced and they were convincing me that I would fail. And so here, not only was I already terrified, but everyone around me, other than my teacher, other than my partner, was convincing me that it was impossible. I would never be able to do this. But I continued to just follow my teacher's recommendations. I began to work on my state every single day. And then I began to see how can I make these wishes come true? And that's when I started to notice a big change in my life. And to me, this topic, shaping our destiny, I want to give a really clear example of how do we do this? How does this really happen? Just about a week ago was my mother's birthday. And because her birthday was coming up, I was thinking about what gift to get her, what should I do for her. And I started to remember just our past conversations around prosperity. And one of the first memories I have talking about prosperity, about money, about financial situations, difficulties, it really stuck with me this conversation with her because it was something I always also wondered. And then she spoke it out loud. So it was about 7 years ago, and my parents were having some difficulties, some problems with their business, and it was going very slow. They weren't making a lot of money. They had debts. They had, I think, over 20 people they employed. And so they had a lot of problems with their business, and they were also, the companies that they were working with were not paying on time. So the debt was piling on. The workers needed to be paid, their own bills needed to be paid, and they had no money. And at that time, I recommended to my mother to contact my teacher, Dasha Kabalova, and to get a prosperity consultation from her. And the reason I had suggested this because my teacher works with prosperity. That is her main topic. She is known as the prosperity queen when it comes to Sanamar Sign and Kundalini Yoga teachers. And so I said, why don't you talk to her, get a consultation, understand how to change your life? And my mother began to reject it. And at first I started to get irritated because I knew my teacher could help her. But then she said something that clicked in my mind. My mom said at that point, at that moment, she said, what's the point? I can get a consultation, sure. I can get some meditation, sure. But what is it going to do? It's not going to resolve any of my money problems. It's not going to resolve my financial problems, my debts. It's not going to get me paid faster. And it was at that point I realized just how much we don't recognize our state impacts everything. At that point, I was just new to Kundalini Yoga at the highest level, and I knew nothing about prosperity. But there was one thing that I began to understand at that point after the first 2 months of working with my teacher is that our state impacts everything. The way we feel about ourselves, the way we care for ourselves, the way we see the world, this impacts everything in our life. And at that point, the reason my parents weren't getting paid by the companies they had a contract with, they should have been paid months ago. They were backlogged 6 months, 8 months. And this was not a problem they had once or twice. This was a problem they've had for 10 years. And I always thought, whenever I would hear them talk about it in my childhood, I always thought that the company is really bad. They're horrible. They're really, really just horrible people, really greedy corporation that doesn't want to pay their workers on time. That was just my concept. And that was the way as well my parents would speak about it. But when I began to work with my teacher, I began to work on healing my state. That was the first time I recognized that the reason they weren't getting paid is because they were afraid to enforce the contract they had signed with the company. In Singapore, contracts are very easily upholded in court, and they would have won. They would have won 100% in court, but they never did. And here, for the longest time, and even they have been running a business for over 30 years. They've had multiple businesses, multi-million businesses, multi-million dollar businesses. And they always ran into the same problems where people weren't paying them on time. And then they would have a bunch of employers that weren't being paid on time. Then they would take out loans and then they would try to pay off the workers, their employers, and then the debt kept piling on and the money kept being delayed by the companies they were working with. And the problem kept persisting. But to them, it was not that I am not resolving this issue. It has nothing to do with my state. To them, they saw it had nothing to do with them. It had everything to do with the company being greedy, being slow, with being really bad at their jobs, whatever. It had everything to do with the environment and the company, but not them. But the moment I began to work with my teacher within the first 2 months, I recognized that all they needed to do to resolve this problem was to enforce their contract in court, and it would be upheld, and their problems would be resolved in that moment. But they never did. Why? Because in their state, there were a couple things. One, constantly anxious. They were constantly anxious. The second, they had a really deep belief that money is very difficult to make. Even though they have created many businesses, they felt that money is difficult, people won't pay you on time. And they were always attracting as well, these companies, they would always have contracts with people who never paid on time. And they never enforced it out of fear, out of guilt, out of shame. To them, it seemed like it's really bad to ask a company to pay them on time, even though they have already done the job, even though they've been doing the job for months. And it was so funny because I used to be really proud of them because from the same company that they had a contract with, they were working with, they used to get rewards, never bonuses, by the way, only rewards like plaques that would say they did the best. And customers would vote every year for 10 years that they had the best work. And they would always get the highest vote. And then they would get this plaque. And it was like, wow, what a wonderful thing. And I was so proud of them. And I always thought that the company at the same time just doesn't recognize their value and that they're underpaying them, they're the ones doing something bad. But when I began to work with my state, I began to realize that we reflect our internal world to our external world. Here, they could not recognize and they could not enforce a very legal contract. And it's not like they're in India, it's not like they're in a third world country where it's really difficult. My father is a Singaporean, has a Singaporean passport, fluently speaks Malay. His family for generations have been there. So he knows the law, he knows the place, the court is on his side. And still, he never went and demanded something that was rightfully his. But he continued to work year after year for the same company. That never changed. And to me, that's when I started to see that his internal world of guilt with money, shame of having a lot of money, feeling that money in general, having a lot of money will attract a lot of bad people, that people want to steal from you. And the fact that he was constantly anxious, all of this influenced the way he dealt with the situation. And in that point, it was so interesting to me because now a few years ago, we learned that there were so many other companies that they could have had a contract with that paid better, that would have been easier to get paid from, and all these different things that would have made the biggest difference in their life and in my life as well. And they never went and they never looked for a different job. They never looked for a better contract. They never tried to negotiate anything. And that's when I started to realize that here it had nothing to do with the companies because there were many companies out there paying better, paying on time that had none of these issues than the one they were working with consistently for years. And I started to recognize just how much our state impacts this. If we have a legal contract with a company and they're not paying you on time, if you're neutral, if you're not constantly anxious and stressed out, and you feel secure in yourself, is it or is it not easy to enforce and demand that the company pays you on time? Yes, it is super easy. But why don't we do it? Fear, which is an emotional reaction. We're afraid. We're afraid to be fired. We're afraid people won't like us. We're afraid our bosses will judge us. We're afraid we'll lose the job and no companies will want to hire us. But these are all illusions. These are all made up by our mind, by our past negative experiences. And then it begins to influence our current present. And then it's setting us up to fail in our future. Yes? Do you see this connection? You can write yes or no. And to me, that was when things got interesting for me because I started to recognize that I can't change my life miraculously overnight. That is true. And even though that was something I wanted, I recognize I can't do that. It's not possible. I am waiting for a miracle to happen. And even though little miracles have happened or big miracles have happened in my life, by waiting on someone else or something else to come in my way and change my life, I am leaving everything up in chance. I'm leaving everything up to chance. I'm giving myself no room to make it a reality. I'm simply just as if I'm gambling my life, just hoping it will change, hoping it will get better. But at that point, when I started to work with my teacher, I was still really depressed. I was still convinced nothing would work out. It's not that overnight I became really convinced and I was super certain I can change my life, but I started to see it piece by piece. I started to recognize that if I started to do things slightly differently, I can improve my life. I can make it better. If not completely change, I can make it better. But then I would recognize this, and then another part of me would feel, oh, what's the point? Is that going to make any difference if I feel a little better? Doesn't matter if I have a little bit more money, it's not going to make any difference to my life. And then I would want to go back into this state of depression and apathy and feeling really sorry for myself and saying, oh God, nothing is going to work out. What's the point of having a little bit more money? All this stress I'm putting into becoming stronger and healthier and happier, it's not going to amount to anything. It's just going to fail. And here is the trick. Here is the resistance of our subconscious. The first thing, if you want, you can write this down, is our mind does not want change at all. It will reject true change at all costs. At all costs. It does not want to change. And I remember this simply because the first consultation I had with my teacher, she said I needed to work with prosperity. I needed to work for myself. I needed to start my own business. My first reaction was no. And then every day I thought about it and I thought, that's impossible. I can't do it. And think about it here. It's simply an idea. I rejected the idea of it completely. There was just no room for me in my mind, in my state at all, for even the possibility that I can work for myself, that I can do something different. If not work for myself, then find different companies, find different jobs. It wasn't even something I thought about, and I thought that's impossible. There's no point. What's the point of thinking about it? I didn't even want to consider the possibility. And so here lies our first trap of the mind is that it doesn't want change at all. And we don't want to consciously, actively do something every day, invest in ourselves, because a deep, deep part of us truly believes nothing will change. That it will amount, all this effort will amount to only pain and no good result will come out of it. And we're terrified. We're terrified of that. Naturally, it's not something that's bad. It's just our natural instinct because we don't know what's going to happen. And our mind fears the unknown. We fear the unknown. If we can't understand or know precisely what's going to happen step by step, we do get scared of it. But the problem here is not that we get scared of it, it's that we don't do anything to change that. We don't do anything to challenge that. And we stay in our comfort zone, even though it's incredibly stressful to stay here. My parents, they've had multiple businesses, and for 30 years, they never once resolved their money issues until the last couple years. They didn't resolve any of those issues. They continue to do the same thing, the same hustle, saying the same thing that, one point things will get better and finally they will pay us properly. And they said they will pay us and then they don't pay them. And then nothing changed with their company. But then I began to work on myself and I began to see all of the things I wanted to do. I realized that not that I wanted to work for myself, but I needed to start doing something to create more income in my life because so much of the things I needed in my life was going to come down to whether or not I had the money for it. I didn't have the money for it. I could not afford anything at that point. And so I thought about, as I began to do these meditations, I started to think about what can I do now to improve my money situation. And so one of the things that came to it is I want to learn the highest yoga. I want to start teaching it slowly and earn some money from it. Because then at least I have another income that will allow me to do a little bit more than not at all in my life. And that's when I started to actively take more and more steps. I decided to try out Jiu-Jitsu, which is a martial arts. I started to um, allow myself to read new books. I started to work out actively. Then I started to think about what different jobs I could do. One of them was teach yoga. Another one was I could sell things online. Another one was I could help with accounting. And then another one was I could help my school, which is that I'm an alumni for, and help with their social media posts. Then there were people who were interested in turbans, so I started thinking about, okay, I can sell some turbans here. Whenever I would go to yoga festivals, I would take jobs at the yoga festivals at the tea stand. And then I remember I was traveling in Germany and I was in this city called Boisenberg. And there was a ashram there that was letting us live there for free. And they said, if you could help us rebuild our bridge, you can stay at this place for free for a few days. And at the same time, we'll pay you. And so I started to try and consciously look for more ways to earn money. I started to think about, okay, if this doesn't work out, what else can I do? And if I need a certain more amount of money, what else can I do if I'm not getting it from my current job? And this was the same as well when I began to get clients from teaching yoga. I didn't stop my normal job at the time. I continued to work. Um, and at the same time, I started to think about how else I can continue to expand my opportunities, my income. And to me, that made the biggest difference because I was taking really little, really tiny, tiny steps because it's the easiest thing to do, especially now to increase our income, the possibilities of what we can do, it is the easiest thing. Just recently, one of my hobbies I like to do is find different artistic channels on Instagram, on YouTube, and look at how they are working, how they are selling their services or their products. And I found a really interesting niche. Maybe it's not a niche, but I found quite a few channels doing this where artists would make small little postcards and then they would print um, 50, 100, 200. And they would sell them for really cheap, €7, $9, €5. And what their business model would be is that they will hand paint something, a postcard or just a little picture, and they pick something every month. They will hand draw it or paint it, then they will print it, then they will ship it to people worldwide. And people started to grow, and you could see on their channel they had 200, 300,000 people subscribe to their channel. And whether or not they do have thousands of people truly ordering, but they at least have a few hundred. And I started to look more and more, and I started to find different channels, different artistic people, the way they work, the way they promote their services. And I found it to be so interesting because we always feel we're so limited. I can't do anything. There's no way I can do anything. And I started to think about how else can I as well promote my services? How else can I grow in my business? And it doesn't have to just be limited to one thing. When I began to teach yoga and I was teaching it in Singapore, my first in-person classes, what I would do is I would also sell turmeric paste because I have a very special recipe that was passed down by the master of Kundalini Yoga that allows this turmeric paste, when you take it, it begins to heal your joints, your muscles, it begins to clean your organs, your small intestine, your liver. It begins to renew your brain, your body. And so I have a really special recipe that most people do not know about. And what I would do is to my in-person yoga students, I would sell them as well yoga paste. I would get a custom order from them. I would tell them about it. I would tell them how they can use it, what recipes they can use, how to help them continue cleansing their body, healing their muscles, their joints, all the inflammation in their body. And they would buy. They would buy from me. And it was such a small little thing I was doing. This is really important. A lot of the steps we can take in our life, they're so easy, they're so small, but they make such a massive impact in our life. The main thing is when we want something to work out, we need a few things. One, we need to have a really clear idea on what it is we want precisely. Example, I want to earn 5,000 euros. I want to earn or find a better job. What better job? Precisely what companies are we looking for? Precisely how much we want to earn. What do we want covered in the contract? So we need to know first thing, precisely what we want. That's the first step. Second step is strategy. We need to have a really clear strategy on how to make it happen. The third, and this for me is the most important, we need to have a balanced, neutral state every single day. And what does that imply? It implies that we need to consciously, every single day, release our anxieties. We need to bring our body, not just on a mental level, but on a physical level. We need to tire out and remove all of the anxiety, all of the built up energy. And we need to bring deep relaxation to our nervous system. And the third, which comes down to the highest yoga, is activate our brain in different points. And that was the first practices I got from my teacher, was to activate my brain, because not only would it heal my brain, but it would change my state. And that's when I began to see the world and myself differently. And when I started to hear about this, when I started to go to live streams and free classes with my teacher, to me, I still couldn't see how this would make such a big difference. But when I started to apply it, that's when my life started to change. Because through the deep meditations at the highest level of Kundalini Yoga, what we do is we activate different parts of the brain and we heal different parts of the brain. For example, if we experience any negative experience in the past, it changes the chemistry of our brain. This is something you can look up. It's talked about in neurology. Psychiatrists talk about it as well. You can even see it in PTSD patients as well. And it's very interesting because whatever negative experiences, whatever stressful experiences we've had from the moment we were in our mother's womb, and we began to grow as a fetus, and then the moment we were born as well. From that day, whatever stress we experience, whether or not we remember it, it leaves an imprint on our brain. It leaves an imprint on our state. And this is the reason why we can or can't do certain things. For example, I will give a really, really simple, really basic example of my life, which is when I was born, my mother had a deathly fear for me that I would get injured, that I would get hurt, and that it would be horrible, that it would be just the worst thing. So every interaction, every time I would fall, every time I would cycle or learn how to cycle, I was learning how to cycle. Every time I would run or try to climb the trees in our backyard, she would have a conniption. She would be so freaked out and telling me to get down, screaming at me and saying, "You're going to get hurt. You're going to get hurt. Harsimran, get down. You'll get hurt. You'll get injured. You'll fall. You'll scratch yourself. You'll bleed." And that was her interaction with me all the time. And so, from the earliest age, everything in my life that was slightly challenging. Even running, learning how to do a push-up. I remember the first time I was forced to do a push-up because I had gone to a boarding school and I was late for our meeting. And they punish you by making you do 10 push-ups right on the spot if you're late. I was late. I had never done a push-up in my life. The moment they asked me to do a push-up, I broke down in tears in front of the entire school because I couldn't handle stress. I couldn't handle anyone being upset at me at any point. And anytime I had to do anything challenging, it was so stressful. But my brother, who's younger than me, had a very different reaction. My mother never once said to him, "You will get hurt." In fact, she was the opposite. She was convinced that no matter what he did, he would be fine. And here it's not even about, the gender issues. Here it just comes down to a really simple thing of how she interacted with me versus how she interacted with my brother. And from the way she interacted with me, what I learned about the world is that when I do something, take a step, when I try to run, when I try to learn a new thing, I will get hurt. And I would get terrified before I would try anything. My brother, on the other hand, was the opposite, where he had none of that. He was fearless. And he used to have to take me everywhere after a certain point. And it was such an interesting thing because here at first I thought it was just me. I was born this way. I'm weak. Everything is really difficult for me. I can't see the way to create business, to work for myself, to create opportunities, because not only did I not see it myself, but my family was convinced and were constantly telling me I would fail, that I didn't know anything, that I was stupid, that I wasn't special like my brother. I knew nothing. And so piling on every negative experiences, every negative word, having no emotional support, having no financial support, I always felt I can't do anything. I can't change anything in my life. Nothing is possible. And here for me, that's when I also started to feel that this practice, these teachings of the highest yoga, it called to me more and more because I did recognize that I had no support from anyone else. Not only did I not have support, my parents weren't neutral, they were the very opposite. They were extremely negative and constantly criticizing me, constantly mocking me. Every time I would start to make money from yoga, the first, I think, year and a half, 2 years, every time I would start to make money and I would start to succeed and I would get 20 clients, 30 clients, after I would get them, they would start to criticize me and they would say, "Oh, it's not going to happen again. You just got lucky that one time. You don't know what you're doing. You won't be able to recreate it. Just wait till the economy tanks and no, 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 no." And I started to recognize that not only was I anxious, not only did I not know how to do anything, not only did I have difficulty in speaking and setting boundaries and asking for what I want, and not only was I not seeing any results in my life, but I really had no one I could rely on. And everyone, the first year, because I didn't know anything about how to charge for yoga classes, I didn't know how to get clients as well. Often, what I would do is just ask my family because at least they'd run a business. So I thought maybe they know something. And I would ask my friends, I would ask my brother. And the issue here comes that everyone has their own limitations, their own experiences. For example, my first yoga venture was teaching classes in China. That was an idea I had, and I needed translators. So I decided to write to my friends and ask if they wanted to work with me and if they would translate my classes for me and help to promote my classes as well to their friends, to their family, anyone in China that they knew of that would be interested. They said yes. Then we had to discuss money. I had no idea how to discuss money. And at the same time, I felt really ashamed about talking about money and discussing it. And I felt really anxious about having this discussion with them about how much I would pay them, how this would work. So I didn't know anything. And my brother at that time said, "Why don't you pay them 60% and you keep 40%?" And because I was really anxious, I thought, yeah, that sounds good. Let's do it. Looking back, just a year after I did this, I realized that they were doing 1/10 of the work. I was still writing everything. I was still doing all the free classes to promote myself. I was the one teaching the classes at the end of the day. And I was also the one attracting a lot of these clients. But I was paying them 60% when I should have been paying them much less because I decided to pay them 60% because there's two people. And one of them had suggested to hire the other one, which is another friend of mine, because she said, well, it's a lot of work for me, and right now I can't do this much. I said, okay. She said, let's get maybe I think this person will be interested. So we got this other person on board. And instead of cutting the amount, at that time I was paying the first person just 30%. Instead of dividing it between them, because the only work that was being divided was between them, not me, my work and what I had to do was the same. But because I felt so much fear, I felt so much guilt and shame that I gave them a bigger percentage. And that's when I started to see, and not at that point, but later on, a year later, I started to recognize that my state, our state, it changes the way we view the world and the way we act as well. If you are convinced that whatever wishes you have, whatever goals you have, you yourself can't do anything to change it, you will never find any way to make it a reality. It's true. You will not be able to see any way to make more money. If you're saying, I can't start my own business, I can't find a job, nobody will ever want to pay me more, it's impossible. Then it's true. You will never find it. Because it's not just about yoga and meditation here, but it's a psychological thing. If you constantly tell yourself, I am bad, I am bad, I am bad, it's never going to work, it's never going to work, then no matter what you do, nothing will work. And if you can't see yourself succeeding, you can't succeed. And here I thought, maybe it applies on a small scale. Maybe what I am learning about this only applies on a small scale. But I started to succeed. I started to understand how to set prices, how to get clients, how to promote myself. And then I started to earn 200 to 300 euros a month from yoga, which for me was massive. I mean, I couldn't even imagine myself at first getting to that point. And then I started to learn and get more different works, different yoga studios started to reach out to me. So I started to learn more about how do we apply our state into how does that reflect in the choices we make. And then I started to get more and more job offers. I got in just 6 months, at one point, I got 8 job offers. One from the school that I graduated from that was founded by the master of Kundalini Yoga. Another was a psychologist in Beverly Hills had reached out to me after reading one of my posts on Instagram, said, I really love what you're writing, what you're talking about, what you're doing. I would love to be able to, do a project with you and you could be like my assistant. And it was such an interesting thing to me. It was such a wonderful opportunity as well. And it was incredibly high paying as well. And then more and more jobs started to come. And at that point, not only was my life really changing, but I was telling my father at that time, I said, well, I decided to leave one of the yoga studios and end my contract with them because they were really underpaying me and I was just overworking and putting so much energy, about 8 to 10 hours a month, just into one place that was paying me only 40 to 60 euros a month. And I thought, I can't, I mean, better to spend that 10 hours doing something else and earning much better than this because it's completely shit. And so I said, I told the yoga studio I left, and a month after I ended my contract with them, they reached out to me and they said, we would love if you could teach your prosperity module, your specialty prosperity workshop. And I said, thank you for the offer. I'm not interested at this time because I knew the prices they were paying and I didn't want to teach again 20 hours just to be paid 60 euros. I thought that's just too much energy, too much time. Then they came back to me a month after that. And this time they wrote something different. Not only did they ask me to teach my prosperity module, but they asked me what would I like to charge and what percentage would I like to keep. And they wrote the terms that they would promote everything, they would hold it on their studio, and I simply had to teach and set the price. And it was the most shocking thing to me because this studio, they were charging only 40 euros for unlimited classes a month. And so every teacher they had, they were earning just peanuts. Like I said, I was earning 40 euros for working 8 to 10 hours a month. It was horrible. But now they changed their terms. They continued to look at every post I was writing, every live stream I was doing, and they recognized that they liked what I wanted that I was doing, and they wanted to work with me. And so they came back and they changed the structure. So then they made a special subscription just for me, for my work, for their clients. And it ended up being incredibly successful. I started to earn from that studio just from 40 euros. I started to earn 2 to 3,000 euros. And I didn't have to promote at all on their studio, on their thing. Nothing. They did all of it. All I had to do was just show and give my expertise. And at that point, that's when I thought, here again, it seems and sounds so easy. I know what I'm saying, it sounds really easy and it sounds like, oh, well, so easy for you. And that's the way I used to think as well, that, well, maybe it just applies to me, that it doesn't apply to a bigger, better, or, a bigger company. But then I was telling my father about this whole situation with the studio that I left it, then they reached out, and then I turned down their offer, and then they came back to me, and then they changed their terms, and then I was able to make something that was worth for me and also worth for them. And he liked it so much. He was so stunned by it that that month he began to, for the first time in his business career, in having his own businesses, and that first time in 15 years after working with that horrible company that was never paying them on time, he started to look for other companies for other contracts. And in 6 months, he found not only another company, but the same business model, but just a different company that was paying for the same amount of work, but 3 times more. And they got $1 million contract. And I thought, that's when I started to see, not just thought, but that's when I truly began to see how much our state changes everything. For the last 15 years, they've been with this one company that never paid on time, that always underpaid the people they had on contract. But anytime they had to hire people for extra help during the holidays, they would pay them 4 to 5 times better because they work in a delivery company, they work with delivery companies. And so during any special holidays or whenever there's a lot of packages that need to be delivered, they will always hire people from outside and pay them a lot more, but never to their contract workers. And so that was something my father, the same company, he kept with them, even though they gave him such a shitty end of the deal, and he stayed with it. He stayed with it and kept taking it, kept working there, hoping it will change. Nothing ever changed. And it got worse and worse over the years. They started to pile on heavier and heavier packages, but not paying more. And they were just abusing all of their contract workers. But then, for the first time, when he started to recognize that yoga and meditation is not just I've meditated and now I'm in blissful state, but to recognize how do we see or how do we change the world? How do we make our life better? That's the whole point. It changes your consciousness. So you begin to see the world differently. And he recognized that he doesn't want to keep doing the same shit and being taken advantage of by this company. For what? And so he started to look actively for the first time for different companies, different contracts. And then he was able to get a much better contract, get $1 million deal. And he was able to double the amount of employers he had. Well, more than double. He went from 20 to 50 in 6 months. And things started to change at that point. And so here I started to recognize that yoga and meditation is not just to be in a blissful state, it's multiple things simultaneously happening. The first is that it's working to relieve all of your anxieties. And that's important. It's important because anxiety impacts the way we handle stress, the way we sleep, what we even want to eat. Our anxiety determines that. When we're anxious, we'll always be craving something sweet, something heavy. We can't eat a light salad. It will drive us nuts because when we eat light foods, when we're anxious, it doesn't suppress the anxiety. But when we eat something really, really sweet, first it hits the brain, the sugar hits the brain, then we get that dopamine rush, and then we feel good, we feel high. And that's one of the reasons why when we're stressed, we crave a lot of sugar because we're looking for an instant way to relieve this anxiety. And then the second is heavy foods. We want something really, really filling. And the moment we start to feel hunger, we want to reach for more food automatically because we are constantly anxious. Here, it's not even about am I or am I not anxious. All of us are always anxious. It's just we don't recognize it and we don't want to accept it because we feel that it's really such a bad thing to feel anxious. But here you can also learn how to use your anxiety, which is a very different topic, but how to use anxiety as your source of strength. But it's a much different topic. We can talk about it in another class. But here, what is really interesting going forward is that as we continue to meditate, simultaneously, what starts to happen is we begin to relieve our anxieties. Then we begin to heal our nervous system, which then allows us to deal with stress, to recognize what is happening, what we need to do. Then, third point is that it begins to heal the body. So, whatever physical pains we have, it begins to remove that. It begins to remove the tension in the jaws, the swelling in our feet, or the fact that we're always overeating, or that our head always feels heavy. And then we start to physically become lighter and lighter. Then the next point it begins to work with is on healing the brain. This is the most important because, like I said, since our first moment in our mother's womb, from the point even that we were born, from day one, every negative experience, every stressful event, it has changed and shaped our brain differently, which then blocks our own inner strength. This is why one person finds it so easy to take on really stressful environments and jobs, and someone else can't even handle 1/10 of that. It's not about weakness at all. It's not about the person we were born as or our circumstances, but the fact that our brain since early childhood has been learning from the entire world, from our entire world, our environment, from our parents. And we see every reaction they have towards us. If our parents were constantly anxious for us, if they constantly criticized us, they were constantly angry with each other, not even us, just each other. We see that and we absorb it. And our brain, because at that point we're so young, we're learning everything about this world, about our parents. We start to shape our nervous system, our brain to fit into this world, to fit into this life, to fit into this family. And so a lot of the weaknesses that we have, the problems we have with money, with relationships, even with health, this is something that our body has been creating from the earliest age, from the first negative, stressful event we've been in. And it changes the chemistry so that we are at that point, because we're so young, we are very defensive. Our brain is very defensive about stress, about anxiety, because it doesn't know how to deal with it yet. Example, there's a reason why children can't watch horror movie because their nervous system, their psyche, their brain isn't able to separate itself and to keep itself safe. And it can be really, really harmful for them because they don't know yet how to regulate their nervous system, how to deal with this complex, stressful situation, this horror that's happening. And it's the same with stress because we're so young, we don't know how to deal with stress. But because we have all these stressful situations happening around us, whether it's happening to us or just around us, our brain begins to find the only way it can deal with it. So it becomes defensive and it begins to shut down different parts of the brain. And so we have a harder time really being calm, stable, neutral in anxious situations. And then here, it begins to then, as we grow into adults, it stays there. It doesn't change. It doesn't open up. Our brain doesn't automatically or over time go back to its first self because whatever it learns, it becomes essentially like a memory muscle and it sticks with us forever. But here we have the highest yoga, which allows us to heal those connections. And through deep meditation, it begins to change the way our brain works. And so we start to see ourselves differently. We start to see our problems differently. We start to see our wishes differently. We start to perceive it differently. And with that, our actions begin to change. But with the actions, it comes back to the first point of this free class that we had. It's a conscious choice. We choose what to do going forward. Here, no yoga and meditation can automatically make a wish come true like this. But what it does is that it gives us this ability to see our life, to see ourselves differently. And from there, we can change, we can redirect the way we deal with stressful situations and the way we deal with our wishes. For me, it was life-changing. I can't even imagine my life now without this at all. Because I was always just simply looking for a magical cure. If not a magical cure, I was always looking for my partner, a man, an adult, a father, mother figure to come and resolve all of my problems, to make my wishes come true. And I was really, in one way, I was really fortunate because um, I recognized how toxic my parents were and how much they could not support me. I don't even mean financially, I mean emotionally. They could not be there for me at all. And because of this, it drove me to really recognize that the path of understanding oneself, to be able to regulate one's emotion, to be able to support ourselves is essential. Doesn't matter whether or not we have someone in our life that supports us, but at the end of the day, nobody can be with us 24/7, right? Nobody can be with us 24/7. There are points that we're going to have to go to the bathroom and they cannot follow us. There'll be points where we have to go to work and our partner cannot follow us. And I started to see slowly by slowly that I can take steps in my life with all of the current situations, problems, lack of money. I started to see what I can do now to help improve my life. And it makes a massive difference. It makes the biggest difference because normally we do not do that. Normally we feel, even when we're taking new steps, that nothing is going to work out. And now what we want to do is we're going to do a meditation in a minute to help expand our internal state so that we don't have this internal feeling, I'm going to fail. It won't remove it for life, the meditation we will do, but it will release it for the next few days and you'll feel much lighter and healthier and happier. And then you can see in that moment, how do you want to live going forward? What steps can you take going forward? It's a conscious choice. But if you want to learn it further, you want to understand further, how can I do this? How can I continue to really not just see my life differently, not just have a little bit of help? Because what I'm talking about today, I'm not going into great detail because otherwise the class will be 7 hours long. It'll be very, very long to really understand what steps we can take. How do we continue to heal the brain? How do we continue to change our consciousness so that we can really have all the support, all the strength that we want? But to do so, I will soon have this May, at the end of May, a workshop on the topic of awakening the superpowers of the brain. And I will be teaching a full 2-day workshop that will be working on the very topic that will truly allow us to be free from our fears, from our problems. What I want to do in this upcoming workshop on awakening the superpowers of the brain is a few things. The first is to relieve the current anxiety, the current imbalances in our nervous system and our hormonal system, because almost everyone has an imbalance with the hormonal and nervous system. So we need to bring that into balance, which we'll do through yoga and meditation. The second part of working with this workshop is to renew our energy so that, because often we have a lot of ideas, we have a lot of wishes, but we don't have the energy or the motivation to do it. And we constantly procrastinate being able to do it. So this will be a second point that we'll work with in the workshop. The third is we're going to work with healing our past pains, negative experiences. This will be done in a few stages. One will be working directly with the brain and helping to heal the brain so that it begins to change the way it works. And a lot of the memories, the negative memories we have and events that we have that left an imprint on the brain, that can be changed. And then we have pretty much not the same. It will be almost simultaneously. We have a lot more ideas, creativity, and strength to go after our wishes, our goals, and to start. And then the third, it will be working, I mean, our fourth stage will be working with our emotional blocks. Emotional blocks, this is the most interesting topic. Here we'll work with emotional blocks, which are our deep, deep blocks that trigger anxiety, loneliness, irritation, anger, guilt, and shame. These are the blocks that affect us the most. As I was talking about my father, my mother having their own business and never enforcing their contract, it was a full emotional block here. Because of their anxiety, because of their shame and guilt around money, they never took actions that would change their life. And in fact, by the inactions they were doing, they were creating more and more problems for themselves in the present, in the future. And then the fourth stage we'll work with in this upcoming workshop is to awaken our intuition. For me, this is such a wonderful topic, intuition, because like I said, I never knew how to make money, how to promote myself, how to understand what steps I need to take in my life. But when I began to work with my brain, at the same time, when you heal the brain through the highest yoga, it also begins to awaken your intuition. And then you begin to see what steps to take, how to change your life. And whatever actions you begin to take, it will begin to create the exact result you want in your life. And it doesn't necessarily mean it will be a short-term instant result. It can be even a much more long-term result. For example, one of my first wishes was to be able to move to Spain, to be able to support myself and live with my partner. And this was one of my long-term wishes. But when I began to work with the brain and begin to activate my intuition, I began to take a lot of steps. And I didn't know it at that time because to me it felt like very disconnected. But every step I took at that time, it resulted in me being able to move to Spain and being able to support myself financially and to also have to change the situation with my relationship, which was a long-term relationship, a long distance, I mean, a long distance relationship for 2.5, 3 years. We were in a long distance relationship. And then I was able to realize this longer term goal, this longer term wish, all by small little pieces, small little steps I was taking. I will talk about this topic in very great detail soon on how our present connects to our future. And this topic will be really interesting because it will be not on prosperity necessarily. It will be, but not greatly. It will be about projection, how our current wishes, goals, steps, and how this will become our future. I'll talk about it because this next class I'm planning, this next free class, I'm planning it in a week or two. It will be on the topic of relationships and how I found my partner, how we met, how our life has been created this last 8 years, and what has happened and what has unfolded. Because when you hear about it, you'll be completely shocked because to me it sounds like something, even though it's my life, it really sounds like something that came out of a fairy tale, but I will tell you precisely how I found my partner because we are from two very different continents, not even countries. I am from Singapore, he is from Russia. And then, of all places, we met in India. And now we both live in Spain together. So I will tell you our entire story and how it happened, how I found the man of my dreams, and how we've been living together and everything. It will be such an incredible class. So the next free class, be sure to join it if you really want to understand and take it further the topic we just talked about today. I will talk about how my wish to find the man of my dreams and precisely like how he should look, the character he should have, everything I wanted, I found in my partner. And I'll talk about how that started, what I did, and then how it happened, and then how it continued to grow. But now, in just a few weeks, on the 23rd, 24th of May, I will hold my upcoming workshop on healing the brain. Now, there will be two separate tariffs for this upcoming workshop. And the first will be the basic tariff, which will include two seminars, which will be the 23rd and 24th of May, where we will work with all the stages I talked about. Then there will be the VIP tariff, which will include a additional seminar, which will be additional 2.5 hour seminar, and a personal consultation. So you will get to work with me personally on top of the workshop. And to go deeper into the topic, we'll talk about it more this week. But here in the chat, I'm going to post the details of my upcoming workshop. There's going to be a early bird price for just 5 more days to join this workshop, which will be 30% off from the original price. So if you want to join, please look at it now. I'm going to post it. Okay. Can you see the link? You can leave a heart if you see it. Perfect. Okay. Right now, the workshop is 30% off from the original price. And instead of paying the full amount, you can pay with a deposit, which will be 50 euros for the workshop, for the deposit. And if you pay the deposit, you will have a full, you will be able to keep this price of the early bird. And then you can pay the remaining before the start of the workshop, which will be in 21 days. I wanted to give a really big promotion for the early bird and to also keep it just to pay for the deposit now so that you can join easily. And then you can join and pay the remaining in 3 weeks. You don't have to pay it right now. You just simply join with the deposit. This is the first time in about a year I have made my workshop at this price. Normally it is 350 euros, but the last month I was doing a workshop on the throat chakra, and I noticed that the next topic everyone needs to work with is the brain. To be able to rejuvenate our brain, because this is essentially our main processing chip in our life. When our brain is healthy, everything in our life can be resolved. Everything. And I'll talk about it deeper. I'll talk deeper about this topic in the next free class, which will soon be announced after today's class. I will announce it again. I'll announce the next free class and I'll talk really deeply about how a wish or goal can start and then how it continues to unfold over 5 or 10 or 20 years. If you're traveling that weekend, there will be recordings. And for this particular workshop, it will be as powerful on the recording as it will be in live. And you will also have the recording available for a full month. This workshop is 2.5 hours a day. It will be 5 hours total for the full workshop in that one weekend. And for everyone who signs up and pays the full payment before or anytime, if you make it before the workshop, I will also send a special meditation that you start 24 hours after you meditate, after you pay. And this will help you begin the process of healing the brain, healing the nervous system, and opening up your intuition. This will be a special additional gift. Okay, please have some water. Does anybody need to go to the bathroom? We can have a 2-minute break and then meditate, and then we can do free consultations. I will turn on the light. Please write if you want a break for 2 minutes in the chat. And then we'll do a really special meditation. Okay, let's have a break, 2 minutes, really quick, and then we can meditate and really feel what I'm talking about. Okay, if you're back, please turn on your cameras. This is not mandatory, but if your cameras are on, I can correct you if you're doing the meditation wrong, which does happen because we can see or perceive it differently. But if your cameras are on, I can correct you, and then you will have a better experience with the meditation. But that is up to you. Now, what will be really important, please, if you don't want to meditate now, please leave the class. Because in a free class or in any seminar, what happens is I feel precisely all your blocks, how the meditation is affecting you. And when it's a group class, I feel everyone. And when one person is not meditating, the entire group feels it. And so it becomes longer and longer and longer to reach that state we want to. But if you don't want to meditate, please leave. If you will meditate, you can stay, and it will be better if you turn on your cameras. Perfect. Okay. All right. Now, please write in the chat before we start, if you have 20 minutes. We will do a 20-minute meditation. We don't want to move for 20 minutes at all. From start to finish, we need to continue. It's not a difficult meditation. It's long because it will work on your main block right now. And make sure you have some water now. We'll have water before we start the meditation because you're very dehydrated and it will be easier to meditate when you have water. Okay, this is a very, very special meditation. It will begin to release your deep emotional block that creates a state of constant anxiety and feeling of failure, like you're going to fail every time you take a step. And it creates also, I have a lot of pressure right now around your temples, in your throat chakra, in your diaphragm, in your belly, and in your jaws. Do you feel this? A lot of heaviness. You may even feel a lot of heaviness on your shoulders or in your neck, like it hurts. Now we'll work to release this tension. I love this meditation because physically it's very, very simple, but you will want to move. You will want to stop doing it because, like I said, our mind doesn't want to change and it doesn't want to relieve any anxiety. It goes against our defensive blocks that we have created from a state of anxiety and fear and negative experiences. But when you go through this meditation, if you don't stop, by the end of it, you will feel a great relief. You will feel a lot of tension has left. And then I'll give you a special task to observe after we finish the meditation, how this will affect you over the next few days. Because after we do a meditation, it's not just happening during the meditation, but it changes your state over the next few days. And it creates a very much lighter, much more positive state. Okay, what we want to do is bring all of our fingers together like this, fingers like this, and palms are flat. And we want to bring them out to the sides so that our palms are looking out to the sides and they are parallel to the ground like this. You can think of it also like we want it to be horizontal, like that. And keep your palms flat, fingers together. Now, don't close your eyes yet. We need to watch. We need to make a circle with our mouth like this. We don't want to just make a little circle. Sometimes, when we're drinking from a straw, we make a little O. This we don't want. We don't want to just a little O. We need to make a big round circle with our lips like this. So your jaws are opening up, like about to yawn. But then we just make a circle. And then we come into position like this. Sit very straight and comfortably. You can sit on a chair, you can sit on your sofa, as long as your spine is straight. Make sure there's no curve or bend in the spine. And then we make a O with the mouth. And now we need to breathe long and deep through the mouth. Very easy. You can relax your hands down because some people make this mistake where I will tell them to breathe through the mouth and do this. You will hyperventilate if you do this. This time, what we need to do is very easy. Imagine like you want to fall asleep here. Super relaxed, super easy. And that's the breath. It's not intense, it's not fast, it's really relaxed. And that's what we want to do. We come into the position, we make a O with the mouth, then we breathe long and deep through O with the mouth. That's it. Now, last point, the fourth point is our eyes are going to be slightly open and focus at the tip of the nose. Like we're squinting at our eyes, but it has to be slightly open. If you have glasses, remove them because it will hurt if you have glasses to do it, to look at the tip of the nose with glasses. So remove them and then slightly open your eyes and then squint at the tip of the nose. You may feel discomfort, and that's normal. After a couple minutes, it will start to reduce and then it will go away. But keep your eyes at the tip of the nose. If you want to remove and release your deep subconscious block, keep your eyes at the tip of the nose. It will be much more effective. And then come into position, spine straight, palms are flat, O of the mouth, and breathe long and deep through O of the mouth. And that's it. Perfect. I will look at everyone who has the cameras on to see you doing it well. Perfect. Yes. Okay, continue. Don't look at me now. Keep your eyes at the tip of the nose. Breathe long and deep. And what I will do is play the lecture from this meditation. The first time this meditation was ever taught by the master, I will play it and you can listen. He won't really say much in the class, but you can hear whatever little bit he does say. Now, please, if you're not meditating, you can leave the class. There's no point to just sit. If you're just sitting with your cameras off, you will get nothing. Nothing will change. You have to be doing the meditation to feel anything for the change to happen.
It should not be this is right, this is wrong, they are right, we are wrong. Moses in front. You have to go through it more.
Breathe long and deep.
Exactly. And chase you as a nightmare, would like to burn them out. Desire is sitting there out. Deep meditation, you are a victor.
Breathe long and deep. Don't move now. Eyes at the tip of the nose.
So tonight, as I promise, we'll go through this deep meditation. It is simple cause meditation. Simple cause meditation will bring in you almost every garbage to a certain extent out. You know, recycle garbage. You understand what I mean? So each thought which is not attended to, has not become emotion, feeling and desire, is sitting there. Instead of each thought gets into unconscious and ruin you and chase you as a nightmare, would like to burn them out. Ready? Posture has to be very correct. That's the only request I will ask. And whether you are right or wrong, once you are set and you start doing it, don't move your body. Because then the nervous system, they find the path. Nerves find sometimes new path. Let it be. Because that's your strength. That's what you're going to learn. Correct? See these hands of mine? Just make them go with here, sit, rest, and this. Both ways, simple. But this elbow should sit with the rib cage. Look at the tip of your nose and kindly breathe long and deep through the O of the mouth. And exhale through the O of the mouth. Make temporarily O of your mouth. Your lips are side flat. Exactly in 3 minutes your body will start hurting you. That is where nerves are going to get active and disconnection has to be connected. There's nothing I can do about it. It's sometimes small itch, sometimes very severe pain, but it is not anything serious. Keep your posture and keep breathing and looking at the tip of nose and keep going. We will release energy for your augmentation. Tantric energy is a diagonal energy. It will go into through you from bottom to top and cross all what negative is.
Focus on the tip of the nose. You will draw out more and more anxiety, more and more stress when you keep your eyes focused 1/10 on the tip of the nose. And don't move.
Watch it. You can come here somewhere, just walk out. A lot of space. Yeah. Posture, keep the best result if you want. Look at the tip of your nose and keep your posture absolutely steady. How much pain you have to go through, it is most welcome thing. Mind you, the nerves have a network through which you live. Hallelujah. Come on. Here. Oh, right in front. Haha. Right here, this green space. Put your skin over and get going. That's okay. Doesn't make a difference. You want something?
Breathe longer and deeper now. Keep your palms flat, eyes at the tip of the nose. A little bit more.
Hands here.
Perfect. Continue to breathe longer and deeper through all of the mouth.
Look at the tip of your nose and breathe through the O of the mouth. Breathe through the O of the mouth so that the vagus nerves can be activated. Look at the tip of the nose so that the optical nerve can be activated. And keeps the hand that way in a receptive pose so all the uh, heavenly contact may be connected. Spine straight and don't move the body.
Okay, now what we need to do, don't open your eyes, don't move, just listen. We need to pull our belly button in, and as we pull the belly button in, we need to chant this mantra, Har. So we pull the belly button in towards your navel, and then you chant Har. And listen how I will do it. We keep the same posture, eyes are at this tip of the nose, we don't move. We go like this. Har, 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 and begin. Har, har. We chant the mantra. Har, 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 har. Keep the posture. This is very short. Eyes at the tip of the nose. Chant har, har, har. And chant softly. It's not loud. We don't scream it. We just chant softly. Har, 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 har. This will change your internal rhythm. It will change your capacity for how much inner strength you have. Har, 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 har. Don't move your arms. Har, 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 har.
Come on, come on.
Now stop chanting. Keep the same posture. Eyes still focus at the tip of the nose. Now you need to whistle with the same music you will listen to now. Just whistle with the same music. Whistle, whistle. And don't move the body. Keep it still. Only whistle. Inhale deep through the nose. Inhale and hold the breath in. Hold. Exhale. And now open your eyes and watch my arms. We need to bring our arms in front of us, parallel to the ground, palms facing up, and hold this position. That's it. And hold it now. Don't move, hold the position. And breathe long and deep. Don't move, breathe long and deep.
Not higher, not lower. Close your eyes.
And close your eyes now.
Palms out, parallel to the ground is a magnetic field. Not higher, not lower, just straight. Palms towards the sky and put your shoulders out and steady. You have exact 3 minutes of this posture. It'll take care of everything. Concentrate, 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 concentrate. Make your spine totally under your control, all the muscles. This energy should reach every part of the body. It will straighten out everything inside. You will be stretched so badly sometimes. It happens to some people. There's nothing to worry about. Get stretched. It is okay right now than to suffer later. Body and muscles and everything will go through changes and put such a heavy pressure that sometimes it become unbearable, sometimes nice, sometimes nothing happens. It depends upon what your physical condition is and how much nerves have connected themselves. You have 1 more minute.
Okay, inhale deep through the nose. And hold the posture, hold the breath. Hold, hold, hold. Exhale through the nose. Inhale deep. Hold the breath, hold the posture. Exhale through the nose. Inhale deep. Hold. And exhale, relax your hands down. And now relax your arms, close your eyes, and we need to fully relax and feel ourselves. Keep your eyes closed, relax your hands onto your legs, and breathe through the nose normally. Relax. Okay. How do you feel? Please write in the chat. How do you feel after the meditation? Calm. Perfect. Lighter and relaxed. Calm. Perfect. Relaxed and calm mind. Connected to myself and others. Wonderful. It makes me very happy to read this because when I first started to work with my teacher the first few months, even though I came out of my depression, most of the time I really couldn't feel a big change. And it made me doubt all the time. I constantly felt like I wasn't doing enough, that it wasn't working strong enough. And for the most part, I was incredibly insensitive to myself. I really could not know, or I didn't even understand the concept of relaxation. And I remember everyone would write in the chat when we would be meditating with my teachers, like, yeah, I feel so much better, I feel so good. And I couldn't feel it. It took me over a year to really actually feel calm and relax. But even then, even though I didn't feel it, things were changing in my life. But when you feel it, it's much better. It's much easier, the process, because then you're not doubting it constantly and you don't feel anxious about it. You can still feel anxious, but it's not this overwhelming sense of nothing's really changing, which is then very difficult to continue. For me, that was really the case where I was so insensitive, and my partner, who's also a teacher of the highest yoga, who's been doing it double the time I have been doing it, and he was learning from the master Sanam Sign, he would always say, "What do you feel?" And I would be like, "No idea. I don't feel anything. I don't feel any difference." And it didn't matter. But the fact that you feel, it's an indication of how sensitive you are. And the second thing, that you're really relaxed. That's it. And for me, I was resisting all of the time to relax, to allow myself to be connected to myself. It was super difficult, and I didn't really understand what that meant, and I didn't want to be connected to myself for the most part because I felt that inside of me there's nothing but anxiety and stress and negative experiences and everything bad, which was just another block I had. But it does happen. We do have this block that comes up where we feel nothing is happening, nothing is changing. But here's just the subconscious block. Now, I will give you a special meditation, a special practice. It's not really a meditation, but it's really healing. It is to whistle every day, at least 3 minutes a day, while you're walking around, while you're sitting. Just whistle any song you like. You can whistle to this mantra. If you want the mantra, please message me directly on Telegram or email or WhatsApp and ask me for this mantra, and you can whistle along. When you whistle, it releases a lot of the fear we have, fear of the unknown and fear of failure, and it gives a sense of victory. This was a technique that soldiers used to do during war, and when they would have to go into battle, they would whistle because it calms and it soothes the brain and the nervous system. So this is something you can do, and you'll find yourself, as you do it, you're able to regulate your emotions better. And I started to do this when I started to do this practice, I started to continue doing it. I don't know if that makes sense, but I continued to do it for 2 or 3 years. Anytime I would get stressed, I would just start to whistle unconsciously, and then I would hear myself and I realize I'm whistling. And then I realize that without even realizing I'm anxious, but I'm already regulating myself. And it's so, so easy. If you can't whistle, you can try to imitate it. And then have this almost like an intention. And then after some time, you will start to be able to do it. But try to blow the air out through a little sip of the air, and then it will start to come out. And then it will work. It'll have a similar effect, and then it will really work. Now, in the next 5 days, you have till the 7th of May, you have the opportunity to join the workshop at 150 euros. It's the full workshop if you pay in the next 5 days. And right now, you can sign up with the deposit, which is 50 euros. And then after the 7th of May, it will be 200 euros for the workshop. So this 5 days will be a special early bird price. And you just have to pay the deposit if you want to lock in this price and then be able to join. All the information about this workshop is on the link I have given you. And if you want to go further with a VIP package, which will include an additional workshop, which will include also a personal consultation, you can sign up for it now or after we've done the first initial part of the workshop, because the additional workshop will be about a week later. So you'll have a chance after the workshop as well to join. But if you want to lock in the early bird price for the VIP, please sign up with the deposit as well in the next 5 days. Then you can keep the same price even if you join after the first initial workshop to get the additional seminar and the personal one-on-one work. I'm so happy you guys joined me for this class. Next week, I'm planning one more free class. It will be on the topic of relationships of love, but also on projection. Because for us now, we have an understanding of what we need to do, why our state is the most important, why we need to work with our emotional blocks, and why we need to work with regulating our nervous system, relieving anxiety. Then next week, I will talk about how we take a wish, especially a long-term or really big wish, and then how do we start, and then how to carry on, and what makes this big-term, long-term wish come true. It will be really interesting because this is something I did with finding the man of my dreams. And now we've been together for 8.5 years. It will be 9 years in November. And I want to talk about how I found him and just everything that connected. So I'll talk about it, how everything happened, because the same application to find the man of your dreams, to build your dream life, it will also apply with prosperity, the topic I'll talk about. I won't really talk about specifically money or prosperity next week in the free class, but it will be the same foundation that you can carry on into your other wishes, your goals. And it will be on relationships and projection. So that will be next week. Thank you so much for joining me. If you want this mantra, if you want for the whistling that we just listened to, please write to me directly, and then I will send you the link specially. And for the next 5 days, do sign up with the early bird, and that way you can join the workshop and get the full benefits. It will be really incredible. This is a topic that was my first topic, and then the second time I revisited this topic through a personal consultation with my teacher, it made the biggest jump from one period in my life to the next. And then the third time I did this topic again, it made another massive jump from different stages in my life. So in this topic, we will really go through a massive transformation, because everything we want is already lives inside of us. It already lives inside, and it simply needs to be activated or stimulated. And so we'll do this in the topic of awakening the superpowers of our brains so that we can really understand how to awaken ourselves and get moving. This workshop will be a massive transformation if you're ready to work on yourself and to really make big changes in your life. If you're still hoping and waiting for something to come along and throw you a bone, then this workshop, it will work for you, but then it won't be what you're looking for. It's this specific workshop is really for people who really want to work with anxiety, who really want to be able to understand intuitively and also without the emotional stress, how to move forward and how to actively improve our lives and improve the quality and the standard of our life. So the early bird price for VIP is 250 euros, which will include an additional seminar and a full personal consultation. A full consultation normally is 250 euros by itself, but with the VIP package, you will get three seminars, my bad, three seminars, and you will have a personal one-on-one consultation. The normal package will have two seminars. And then the moment you pay the full price, you will get a meditation. You can start now until the workshop that will allow you to begin the process of healing the brain and the nervous system. It will make the workshop much more powerful. And at the same time, you'll start to release all of the anxieties and the procrastination, the fears that you have now. And you can see this all in the link. It will include here it says for the VIP experience what it includes, which will be access to the full 2-day workshop, personal consultation, and then additional seminar on freedom from fears and laziness. I love this topic because this is something that always slows us down. And the moment you're not procrastinating, things start to move really, really fast in your life. So we'll do that on the VIP class. And you will also have a personal consultation. So you'll have really clear steps you need to take on top of all the practices and seminars of the classes that will really allow you to make your wishes come true. And before we end today's class, for personal consultation, we went over the time quite a bit today. But if you're interested, we can set up tomorrow free consultations. Please write to me and we'll set up a time and I will make the time for each one of you so we can have something that's one-on-one. It will be a free consultation and we can see what blocks you want to work with, what topics you want to work with. And for that, just write to me directly on email or Telegram. And that's it. We'll set up the call. We'll start tomorrow and to really understand as well if this is your topic, the brain. Because sometimes it's not the topic you need, it can be something else. So we can see in the consultation what you need. Thank you so much for joining me. Please write reviews for this class on to me directly. That would be wonderful. Perfect. Yes. If you have any questions, please write to me. If you want a personal consultation, please write to me. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day, wonderful evening, and I will see you soon. Thank you as well.